My name is Morgan Hurst. I'm no doctor, I'm no nutritionist, I'm no guest lecturer at Yale University. You know what I am. I'm you. I'm a real person. I'm a 47-year-old firefighter, and I live with my wife, Grace, and our 3 kids in Denver, Colorado. I've protected my community, their homes, and their lives for over a decade. I helped lead the efforts in the Spring Creek Fire of 2018 and Wolf Creek Pass Fire of 2013, but I know what it feels like to lose control. The same way a fire can turn on you any moment, your body can too. And that's what happened to Grace. Grace's story is one that is very personal and embarrassing, but will be familiar to you. It started about 15 years ago when she became pregnant with our first child, Daryl. We were your average, happily married 30-somethings, enjoying life like the majority of people, taking our health for granted pretty much every day. Grace had been an all-star track champion in her teens, an athlete her whole life. It was one of the things that made me fall in love with her. But during Daryl's pregnancy, she put on about 30 pounds, which never went away. Then our next child, Kirsty, came along, and on went another 20 pounds. After our third child, she was already 70 pounds heavy. Every time she looked down, grabbing her belly, I could see her feel shame and guilt for letting herself go like this and not doing anything about it. She went to see Dr. Matthews, who was very concerned about Grace's health, and warned us we needed to do something before her health deteriorated even more, or worse. So surprise, surprise, he recommended a calorie-controlled diet and exercise. And although we didn't realize it at the time, this moment would mark the beginning of a 10-year nightmare, because after the hope and enthusiasm with every new diet came the crushing disappointment when it would inevitably fail and the weight came back plus a little more. I mean, Grace tried everything to lose the stubborn fat: vegetarian, low carb, keto, paleo, fasting, special teas, even hypnosis. We spent thousands on meal plan deliveries, home gym equipment, gym memberships, ab crunchers, and not to mention the fitness classes like CrossFit, Zumba, Insanity, P90X, and more. And I'm not going to tell you that these strategies didn't work. They did work for a while, but like so many people, Grace couldn't stick to any of them. And every time Grace felt upset or bad, she turned to comfort food, and the diet was over. As the years rolled by, Grace's energy levels, vitality, mood, and general health and well-being went rapidly downhill. You see, I know exactly what you are going through. The shame, the pants that don't fit, the binging, the scale, anxiety. I get it, because I saw Grace live these feelings every day. But still, we trusted the doctors, and although Grace's diets and exercise were supposed to help, she piled on more and more weight as she found herself unable to fight the intense cravings for sugary and starchy foods that overpowered her every day. And the more weight she put on, the more depressed she became, and the further away she drifted from the woman I'd fallen in love with. On top of it all, our sex life had completely gone. We found ourselves slipping into a long, boring routine of going to work, watching TV, and going to bed while feeling constantly tired, depressed, and unhappy, and dissatisfied. Until one night with Grace asleep upstairs, I found myself browsing Instagram, looking at slim, sexy women in their bikinis on beaches. I felt so guilty, but I couldn't help myself. I wondered why I didn't find Grace as sexy as these women. I wished to God I did, but I didn't. I felt so bad that I turned off my iPad and went upstairs to show her how much I loved her, no matter what she looked like. Don't touch me, I'm fat and disgusting, and I'm always going to be fat and disgusting. I don't want you to touch me, she yelled, when I reached out to hold her, to kiss her, to show her I cared. Seeing her embarrassed, laying there, grabbing her belly fat she hated so much, I felt powerless and weak in a way I never thought I could. That night, I lay awake for hours next to Grace, staring at the ceiling and feeling my heart constrict in my chest, imagining life without my wife. I had vowed to take care of her, so I made a promise to myself. I was going to do everything in my power to defeat her belly fat for good, whatever it took. I was going to fix her. I was going to make her love herself and her body again. And I was going to do it without diet or exercise. After all, the reason for most of her health problems over the last 10 years had been because of the diets and exercises she'd been torturing herself with, because that's when her health really began to worsen. The thought of losing Grace too soon broke my heart. She was my rock. So that night, I got on my tablet when she'd fallen asleep and began my mission. I started my research with our fat cells. You see, when fat cells grow, they release a hormone called leptin. You may have already heard of leptin. It controls our hunger and how full we feel. When leptin levels are low, we feel hungry and crave calories. When leptin levels are high, we feel full and satisfied. Sounds simple enough, but problems arise when something called leptin resistance happens. Take a look at this image. I'm sure this cycle sounds familiar. You eat your food, that's at the top there. Excess energy from food is converted into fat and stored in our fat cells. As fat cells expand, they release leptin, signaling your body to stop eating. It is here when naturally you should stop eating and feel full and satisfied, put the knife and fork down and maintain a slim, sexy figure, but instead, leptin resistance occurs. As your body is resisting leptin signals, the brain never gets the message, you're full. Instead, you continue to feel hungrier and hungrier, even though you are eating more and more, until at the end, you've eaten that entire cake. You've wolfed down that whole bag of chips. You feel guilty, you feel sick, you feel tired, but you still don't feel entirely full or satisfied. You've gone from feeling hungry to feeling sick and tired. And a short time later, the cycle starts all over again. This is the exact cycle that Grace had been in for years, and the same cycle you and other women or men struggling with weight loss are in right now. That's a scientific fact. You see, it's not your fault you took just 1, 2, or 3 more slices of pizza or decided to finish off that tray of cookies. You don't lack willpower. It's all down to your inability to turn off your hunger. But what causes leptin resistance? Well, couldn't find a single precise and distinctive answer on exactly why it happens in the first place, and why this has started only in the last 50 years. Look at this graph. Overweight people barely existed in the 1950s. Dr. Matthews himself stated that the medical industry isn't exactly sure where leptin resistance comes from, only why it is bad for us and that is increasing at a rapid rate. A recent report published by OECD based in Paris, France, predicts that 75% of all American adults will be obese and leptin resistant by 2020 if things don't change. You may be thinking that it's because we're eating more, right? Well, remember that cycle of leptin resistance? Leptin resistance causes overeating and therefore more fat, not the other way around. So if your overeating was simply a symptom of leptin resistance, what was the cause? How do you or Grace get leptin resistance before all the weight gain began? For weeks, I devoured everything the library had to offer. I read through hundreds of dusty old medical journals. I visited universities, spoke to doctors, endocrinologists, alternative therapists, and even Chinese herb doctors for help. But I found nothing new, just the same old tired advice of eat less, exercise more, and count calories. Advice that you or any other person struggling with weight loss listening to my story today has heard a million times before. I felt like I'd hit a brick wall, and after weeks of research, I was nowhere, until I had left online posts on forums and message boards requesting any information that could help Grace. I spoke with a man I'll call Jonah, who has asked to remain anonymous to protect his identity. For 10 years, Jonah had been working at America's biggest weight loss brand with an annual revenue of over $1 billion. You know, the kind that ship you those healthy meals, shakes, and meal plans every month, until he became sick of what the weight loss industry had become and was fired for finally speaking up against his greedy CEOs and voicing his concerns. Over our call, he revealed to me the 3 biggest and closely guarded lies of the weight loss industry. And it was because, in his own words, the whole industry was a giant and deliberate fraud, which makes billions every year, not by helping you lose weight, but by actively making you fatter. As Jonah explained, The moment you feel your belly get a little squishy and your hips getting a bit wobblier, you're encouraged to stop eating so much food, stop eating carbohydrates, and restrict your calories. Sound familiar, right? So I'm really looking forward to hearing your success story, and I want to thank you for sticking around and hearing about this incredible new tool in your weight loss journey. I hope I've answered any of your remaining questions, and by this time, I hope I'm giving you the confidence to order your own supply of LepiTox today. You can go ahead and do that by just choosing your package below and completing your LepiTox order now. Remember, shipping is 100% free. And also, I do want to say I personally recommend our most popular 3 or 6 bottle package for the best value. And those come with 1 or 2 free bottles of our proprietary formula LepiTox Colon Cleanse. So just go ahead and click the button below. Complete your checkout, and I'll be talking to you soon.